that the Club of Rome accepted, I think for the first time, one of the more positive reports. Actually, it was not just a positive report, it was a cascade of good news. And you know, when you're in the midst of the 2009 crisis, then of course people wanted to have a bit of that. They wanted to have the zest of the good news. The report was accepted, and I got a 15-minute slot to present the report to the Club of Rome, which is entitled, The Blue Economy. I must say, it is beyond my wildest dreams how many translations of the book came out. I mean, we are now in 36 editions, 36 languages, sold more than 1 million copies. And I don't have a PR agency in charge. I don't pay a group of people to just run around. I'm the only guy who runs around like a chicken without a head. I mean, it is absolutely amazing, the response, and I must thank the crisis for it. I must thank people for having given up and not thinking it's possible and just say, well, we can't do anything anyway. But when you read a book, you realize it's not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. You can do so much. And I'm quite surprised that, you know, I got the permit from the Ayatollahs in Iran. The book is published in Iran, and we have a major congress at the University of Tehran. So I consulted my friends in America, is this possible in the framework of the boycott of the European Union? And I've been guaranteed that Iran is still a member of the United Nations, and under the UNESCO Charter, you do exchange science, technology freely across borders, so if you get a ticket paid by them, just go and do the lecture and come back quickly. But it's very interesting that the book has been approved by the Chinese Communist Party, and the first European edition, can you guess which language it was? Romanian. Who's here from Romania? You know, isn't it amazing that the Romanian edition, and I'm sorry that you and I, Wouter, we're missing the meeting of the Club of Rome, starting tomorrow evening in Bucharest, and it is so keen for me to be able to reach out to so many different languages where I never thought that now Romanian, yes, but that's also translated in Ukrainian, Slovenian, Croatian, Serbian, Slovakian, Czech. And I think people are now so hungry to know, not give me the list of the 1, 2, 3 things I can do. Tell me, how can we start seeing the new economy emerge? Because we need a new economy. Can you imagine we have an economy where whatever is good for you and whatever is great for the environment is expensive? I don't get it. I mean, how can we ever think that we will steer societies, communities towards sustainability when the good is expensive? And therefore, we subsidize it. And we subsidize it to the point that our governments get overstretched, and then you have to pay more taxes. I think we have to realize that we're sitting in an economic system where we need a lot of brains, a lot of great people who slowly but steadily all start working in that other direction. Because if I'm the opening speaker, it's just me, but there's so many people who actually are bringing us to a consciousness level that is different. But the one thing that we have been so much missing is to mainstream. Get out of the test cases, get out of the pilot systems, get going and do it. And therefore we need to adopt a new philosophy. And the new philosophy is not the 1,000 small steps. Yes, it is the philosophy, the 1,000 small steps, but all at the same time. We need 1,000 small things happening all at the same time in order to move, and therefore I think I've been very privileged to work with a lot of fascinating people around the world who not only have supported me but also have criticized me and have told me I'm wrong and that I'm off the track and that my feet are off the ground and I'm fantasizing. And we need people to dialogue with us and challenge us all the time. We can't only sit in rooms where everyone already agrees before they came in. And we have too much of that. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. I'm not against scratching the back. But I am against that we are only repeating what we know and what we agree. We have to start talking to people with whom we don't agree. And build that community and move forward. And I've been privileged that one of my organizations was the publisher for Lester Brown, the State of the World report. Hoe is de wereld eraan toe? Was published in the 1980s. And I was proud that in the Netherlands I could do that together with FEM, Financieel Economisch Magazine. That was quite revolutionary. Because in the 1980s this was not what Financieel Economisch Magazine op de cover mensen zetten. So I think we have to start putting up these bridges with people who go beyond, and then we have to see who are the ones who are mainstreaming beyond their wildest dream. Take for example here, Katia Bastioli. She just signed a 400 million euro investment agreement to construct the first large-scale biorefinery, 400 million euro, in order to collect the waste streams from the farmers that are not put back into the soil. You know, the stuff that normally gets burned. It's not even good enough for animal fodder. But 400 million, it means that we finally see a breakthrough in the biorefinery, which our friend Carl-Göran Hedén was already promoting 50 years back at the Royal Academy of Science in Sweden. Now it's a $400 million investment. And did you know it? Did you know it's at that scale now? This is wonderful. And that we realize that when you have that her little investment fund, by women, for women, only managed by women, that investment fund is now the largest, privately, it is the largest investment fund of South Africa on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, with a portfolio of $2.4 billion. I mean, you in the Netherlands, and we in Europe, in general, we've been promoting women, right? Give me a break, where is the $1 billion fund? Give me a break, where is it? And this is done by a lady in Africa, in South Africa. And I think that is what we need to hear, we need to see, we need to relate to, and we need to learn how is it possible you get to 2.4 billion. And Wendy has made a very blunt analysis of the cement market. She's not going into the details and saying, cement, too much CO2 emissions, high energy, let's write a report, let's do some CSR. You know the whole stuff that they usually do, the dog and pony shows that they put up with CSR. When they said, on the South African market, there are 2 European suppliers of cement who control the market, and therefore in South Africa you pay double the price for cement than in any African country. I will break that monopoly. And while the European Union is policing these companies not to have collusion on prices, they don't do it with us in South Africa. And a French company and a Swiss company have split the market in Switzerland, have split the market in South Africa, and we're going to break it. And we as women, we've decided that housing is important and therefore cement should be cheaper, and we are sick and tired that neither the ANC nor the European Union is doing anything. We're putting up $300 million to put up the first cement plant, designed, managed, developed in order to have housing. That's what we need. And I know that in this room there are the bankers, right? If you dare to raise your hand, who's a banker? Hey, oh, that came out strong there in the back. So, let's get the $1 billion going, will you? You know, and we all tried and we all made our efforts. And this is the little factory that exactly 2 years ago we opened in Belgium, in Mannheim. And that little factory was where we have biodegradable soaps made in an ecological factory. No connection to the sewerage system. Now the sewerage system, we built this reed bed water treatment system. I don't know anyone who's been a little bit hippie 20 years ago or 30 years ago, we've tried the reed beds. Now I said, I'm going to put it industrial. That was a great try, but it doesn't work very well, especially not in the winter. And therefore we needed the roof, because industrial land is too expensive. And therefore I decided to convert my roof as a wastewater treatment plant, second phase. So we were pumping the leftovers from our reed beds on the roof. And that gave us an insulation. And people say, but this building is more expensive. No. We have eliminated the space of land required for wastewater treatment. And that's our roof. And now it becomes an insulation. Now we have a natural management, a much better management of the temperature inside the building. So we're paying with the energy savings our wastewater treatment, which is now ecological, and we cut the connection to the grid of sewerage. You know what this really is? This is what we call systems thinking. Somehow, we've all been reading Fritjof Capra. I hope you read Fritjof Capra. Or we've gone to the deep ecology of Ardennes. And we have been studying this, and the Club of Rome was the great promoter, the first great promoter of this systems approach. But how come business continues to get stuck in this core business, core competence model? Where the only thing that we look at is cash flow. And I had to realize that even the ecological products from the ecological factory was not sustainable. It is not sustainable because I rely on palm oil. And I'm sorry, I cannot accept a certification of sustainable palm oil when you do it on a piece of land that used to be the habitat of orangutan. And I don't care if this was 20 or 50 years ago, it never can be sustainable. Never, ever. And I reject that double moral that we have. We have to become a bit more fundamentalistic in our approaches. For the very simple reason that doing less bad is bad. You don't have to be a philosopher for that. We know that doing less bad is bad. Stealing less is stealing. Polluting less is polluting. Having damaged, you cannot say we will certify that we now don't use much water. And we will have some NGO paid so that the poor little dwarf elephants now running around and the poor little orangutans who survived, that they can actually be in a zoo. Forget about it. This is not what we need. We need to fundamentally think through, and therefore the only way to go about in Indonesia with sustainable palm oil is that you have no palm oil. And we have to have the common intelligence to turn it back into the rainforest, as we have done in Colombia. And if we're not prepared to say we don't tolerate doing less bad anymore, we're not going to be able to make the strides forward in sustainability that we need to make now. I cause collateral damage. You know, the United Nations Charter prohibits collateral damage. And we kind of tolerate it for the military. Unfortunately, we have a deep disrespect for the United Nations Charter. Collateral damage cannot be tolerated. And in business, we even write reports about it and publish it and get then awards for it. Excuse me. Are we preparing next generation for a different look at society? First of all, 25% of all the youth is unemployed, but then we're exposing this double moral to anyone who grows up in our communities. And that is what we have to change. And the only way we change is by doing things. And yes, we tried so hard with the green. I mean, there's so many wonderful people that I have learned to know over the past 40 years who invest so much of their efforts to have that green economy, but not was it our intention that this was going to be an expensive product that is for the rich who made their money with what? Those who can afford it make money with the non-sustainable stuff nearly all the time. And so I wanted to look at this blue, where we have to be innovative. I am not here to say, this is the good and that is the bad. That's the wrong attitude, which you always have in these Christian cultures around the world. I've lived 24 years in Japan. I don't have it anymore. In Buddhism, you can always do better. And even Buddha said, check me out, because even I make mistakes. That kind of humbleness, fallibility, is not exactly what the Pope is demonstrating. I'm not here to please you. I'm here to make you uncomfortable. I'm here to say things which you don't want to hear, perhaps. But that's the only way we can progress in our mind. This is a place where the wind blows, and our mind needs to be refreshed. We need innovations where we can have competitiveness and at the same time generate jobs. Now somehow our economists say that is not possible. Well, sack the economists. Sack him! I mean, I'm not willing to submit myself to a logic that is securing that even today in Spain, with 53% of young people unemployed, that if the economy were to grow for 5% a year for 10 years, then we only have 20% unemployed young people. That means the growth model is bankrupt. And even if it were to happen, and I don't think the Spanish economy is going to grow at 5% for 10 years, I don't think it's going to happen. But even if it were to happen, you still have to tell to 20% of the youth, we have no jobs for you. Welcome to the world of violence, protests, drugs, and all the other things we don't like. And what are we going to now do? Increase the budget for the police?